This is CBN NewsWatch.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for CBN NewsWatch for this Thursday, April 22nd. I'm George Thomas. Today, the controversy over vaccine passports. While 2 states are moving ahead, others oppose them, and Israel has already implemented its own version. We'll show you how it works. The battle over statehood for Washington, D.C. Democrats pushing ahead with a vote on it today, but Republicans calling it a power grab. What's really happening at the border? CBN News brings you a first-hand look and will explain why women and young girls are most at risk. And Cook Cameron bringing his 100-day American campfire revival to its end with a message about faith in God. Those stories and much more on this edition of CBN NewsWatch. But we begin with the controversy over vaccine passports. Credentials showing that you have to have it and be vaccinated against it from COVID-19. Hawaii has just implemented a vaccine verification program, the second state to do so after New York. But several states oppose them, saying that they violate privacy or civil rights. And in the UK, by the way, more than 1,200 leaders of churches have asked Prime Minister Boris Johnson not to establish vaccine passports. But in Israel, the government is issuing its version of a vaccine passport called the Green Pass for those who have been vaccinated or recovered from the virus. Israel will open its skies to small groups of vaccinated tourists starting next month. The country is moving to revive its economy now. More than half the population has received both doses of the COVID vaccine. As Chris Mitchell reports, a major part of that recovery includes this controversial Green Pass. Take a look.
The so-called passport is being offered only to those fully vaccinated or who have recovered from COVID-19.
Either get the vaccine or avoid certain kinds of risky interactions with others.
Only the passport holders will be allowed to eat inside restaurants, go to the gym and swimming pool, enter houses of worship, attend other various events, and fly into the country without quarantining.
If someone decides not to get the vaccine, they are within their right to do so. But it's also true that they should be the ones who bear the cost of this poor decision.
Those without a green pass can also have a negative PCR test a maximum of 72 hours before an event. Tourists must have a negative PCR test before boarding the plane to Israel, and when they land as well, have a serology test at Ben Gurion Airport to prove they've been vaccinated. Israel is working with other countries to find a method for recognizing each other's vaccines. Some feel the Green Pass program is government overreach and possibly illegal.
The WHO and most of the governments in the world so far, certainly the United States, has not adopted this measure. Even if you want to vaccinate, one has to be careful in not forcing vaccination.
Renowned immunologist Dr. Zvi Bentwich of Ben Gurion University is part of the Emergency Public Council for the coronavirus crisis. The group, comprised of doctors, scientists, and others, have filed a lawsuit with the Supreme Court, calling the Green Pass coercive and predatory.
We are not against vaccination, but we are against the usage of a measure that would cause discrimination and enforcement of measures that would impinge on human rights.
Professor David Enoch at the Hebrew University in Jerusalem disagrees.
When done properly, it does not violate human or civil rights. Giving at least a fairly successful vaccination effort, Green Passport policy is the way to do that.
Having a policy, let's say in restaurants, that everybody will wear a mask and there would be some sort of distancing, but by saying that you cannot enter a place unless you have this passport, that's a different story.
Many Israelis hope that once herd immunity is achieved, green passes and other restrictions will be unnecessary, so life can just return to normal. Meanwhile, these passports will rule the day. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Thank you, Chris. Here at home, the House of Representatives will vote on statehood for Washington, D.C. today. Democrats are expected to pass it without Republican support. Conservatives argue the Democrats simply want another state so they can add 2 more Democratic senators. But what are the chances this bill actually becomes law? Jenna Brada has a story.
Making Washington, D.C. the nation's 51st state is a top legislative priority for Democrats. H.R. 1 is expected to pass the House, but getting it by the Senate could prove much tougher.
We're Americans. If we fulfill all obligations of citizenship, we should be treated equally, and that's what statehood does.
This coming from one lifelong D.C. resident, and Democrats agree, including the White House. This week throwing its full support behind H.R. 51. In a statement from the Office of Management and Budget, Congress should provide for a swift and orderly transition to statehood. The same bill passed the House last year, but fell flat in the Republican-controlled Senate. Even with Democrats now in charge, the same thing will likely happen because of the 60-vote filibuster.
And so I think you're going to hear a lot of talk within the next several weeks about whether or not the Democratic members have the votes to pass this bill, and if they can get to 50 votes, whether they will be willing or able to abolish or alter the filibuster in order to pass this legislation.
Zach Smith with the Heritage Foundation testified in last month's hearing. He tells CBN News there's a constitutional reason the nation's capital is not a state.
The framers envisioned that the seat of the federal government would be independent from any state. And there were really 2 reasons behind that. They wanted to ensure that the federal government could have physical control over the Capitol sufficiently to secure the officials who work there, the buildings that are there that house government operations. And they also wanted to make sure that no one state had an outsized influence on the operations of the federal government.
Republicans see the effort as a power grab. House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy.
It's unconstitutional. It's no different than packing the Supreme Court. The only reason the Democrats are doing it is trying to get more electoral votes and more senators. And why they're doing it when they are, because they know they're going to lose the majority. It was never created or should be a state. If there's anything it should do, it should go back to Maryland.
Since D.C. consistently supports the Democratic nominee for president, statehood would tilt the balance of power in the Senate to Democrats. So much hinges on the Senate filibuster for this bill and others. Right now, though, not enough senators support getting rid of it. So 60 votes it is. In Washington, Jenna Browder, CBN News.
Coming up, Arizona's governor sending National Guard troops to the state's southern border. We'll bring you a first-hand look at the crisis on the border and tell you about the terrible human cost of this crisis, especially for women and little girls, when we come back.
Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep as the world watches from the outside.
It's a big diplomatic tug of war here in the Middle East.
Go inside the story with Jerusalem Dateline.
Israeli archaeologists are talking about a discovery that could change the thinking about the Temple Mount.
Join CBN Jerusalem Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell and get the biblical perspective on the events shaping the world.
What starts in Israel then ends up going to other places.
Watch Jerusalem Dateline Friday night at 8:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Life. It's meant to be lived fully. Jesus said it. I came to give you life. Life to the fullest. Life in your family. Life in your finances. Life in your body, mind, and spirit. Life in your everyday. At At CBN.com, we're taking what Jesus said seriously. We're here to help you discover life. Life. Live it fully. CBN.com.
Your news channel. Your shows. The stories you care about. Anytime you want. Anywhere you want. Download the CBN News app today.
Welcome back to the broadcast. Vice President Kamala Harris will hold a virtual meeting Monday with the President of Guatemala and travel to Central America in June to talk about the crisis at the border. And in Arizona, Governor Doug Ducey has called out the National Guard, sending 250 troops to the border in response to the crisis there, with a record number of migrants coming. He says if the Biden administration won't do anything, Arizona will. Ducey is calling on the president to declare a national crisis at the border, and he's being critical of the administration's lack of action. Arizona senators, both Democrats, are supporting the Republican governor's decision. So how bad is the situation on the border? Well, every day, 6,000 illegal immigrants are flooding the U.S. border, creating a hotbed of drug smuggling and human trafficking. Women and little girls are most at risk, with up to 80% chance of being raped. Tara Mergener traveled to the Rio Grande Valley, where she spoke to some migrants firsthand. To take a look.
We're in the Rio Grande Valley looking across the river at Mexico. This is the busiest place for illegal immigration in the United States. It's our first visit since the change in administration, and the first time we've been told Border Patrol is not allowed to assist us. But thanks to the help of local law enforcement officials and private citizens, a glimpse at what many believe is a crisis growing out of control. Feet firmly on U.S. soil for the first time. A group of mostly Central American migrant mothers and children smiling on the homestretch. Like the 6,000 others per day reported to be going around official entries at Texas's southernmost point, they believe the journey is a success. What made you come to the United States now? Was there something you heard in your own country that made you decide this was a good time to come?
He saw in the news there was a new president and he had more opportunity.
Smugglers see more opportunity too, as they navigate dangerous rip currents racing across the Rio Grande, one after the other, hour after hour. Mexican authorities watch it happen from the water as U.S. border agents manage dozens, even hundreds at a time, while also trying to keep cameras away.
Okay, can you please not interfere in our enforcement? Because this is private property. The government does not own this property, but they're telling us we have to leave right now.
During the commotion on shore, scouts give the all clear for another crossing. The distance only about the length of a football field. This is the Mexican side of the border. In the sand, the footprints of thousands of migrants who've waited to cross into the U.S. with the help of a smuggler. It happens all day, every day. Fearing for her own safety, this resident asked we hide her identity. In the last couple months, how many rafts have you seen cross in the time you've been out here?
If I had to give you an estimate, I would say at least 60, 70 per day. Hundreds of people. Most come from Central America, traveling weeks to get here. Nearly all claim to be fleeing violence and poverty. What will you do now that you're in the United States?
Pues aprovechar la oportunidad que se nos ha brindado ante todo, ¿verdad?
Along the way, many become victims of abuse and exploitation.
Veníamos en un bus como ese y se subieron en Veracruz. Un agente de la PGR nos revisó y nos quitó todo lo que traíamos, dinero.
Often at the hands of drug cartel members, they pay thousands of dollars to get them here.
Especially we have women and little girls coming in thousands. And we all know that women and little girls have a 60 to 80% chance of getting raped.
Not all who make the trip survive.
sometimes see dead bodies floating and stuff because they try to make it across, or they get snagged on the bottom, or whatever reason they don't make it.
Still, many do, including the unaccompanied children crammed into this overflowing detention facility in Donna, Texas.
Every facility we have along the southwest border is over capacity right now. Just yesterday, we had over 10,000 people in Border Patrol custody. That's much higher, especially under COVID constraints, than any facility should have.
We saw makeshift facilities like this one under a bridge intended to go undetected by media and other observers. Migrants are then sent to area shelters and in a matter of hours, free to go.
They're released so they can continue their legal proceedings here in the United States, somewhere where they're going.
Only recently is the Border Patrol confirming the record numbers being released into the U.S. without court dates, as the system grows more overwhelmed by the day. In March alone, an estimated 171,000 plus entered the U.S. illegally, 5 times more than a year ago. By year's end, the number expected to reach more than 1 million.
As soon as they get it to this side, they go ahead and flag down Border Patrol because they want to get caught, because they know they're going to get processed and then shipped out to wherever they're going to get shipped out. They're not going to get deported back to their country.
Signs of the migrant surge, like these pants left behind, are obvious on the border. But experts say the problem is increasingly being felt across the nation in areas far from the Rio Grande Valley. In South Texas, I'm Tara Mergener, CBN News.
Thank you, Tara. Still ahead, could Israel be facing the possibility of a war with an army working on behalf of Iran? We'll tell you why it could happen when we come back.
On October 1st, 1961, history was made when a tiny station began transmitting the first signals of the Christian Broadcasting Network.
CBN, the Christian Broadcasting Network.
And now, a new era has begun with the all-new CBN News Channel.
Just moments ago, the Iron Dome intercepted an incoming rocket right on the Gaza border.
Administering in this area, spiritual warfare is definitely involved.
A 24/7 news network, bringing you the news you want from a source you can trust.
In Kenya, 40% of the medical services are actually provided by these Christian hospitals.
Let's talk about the economy.
Believers here are joining together to win people to Jesus Christ.
All your favorite shows now in one place. Go to CBNNewsChannel.com to find out how to get the CBN News Channel on your TV all day, every day. CBN News. Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
Life. It's meant to be lived fully. Jesus said it. I came to give you life. Life to the fullest. Life in your family. Life in your finances. Life in your body, mind, and spirit. Life in your everyday. At CBN.com, we're taking what Jesus said seriously. We're here to help you discover life. Life. Live it fully. CBN.com.
Welcome back. It seems clear the United States will likely re-enter the Iranian nuclear deal, so Israel is making its own plans. The Israeli Defense Forces have sent signals it would take military action if necessary to stop the regime from making nuclear weapons. If such an attack happens, it could trigger the biggest war yet between Israel and Iran's proxy army, Hezbollah. Chris Mitchell brings us that story from Israel's northern border.
The border here between Israel and Lebanon is deceptively quiet, but on the other side of this fence lies Hezbollah with more than 100,000 rockets that can hit almost anywhere inside Israel.
All of them were brought to Lebanon in order to be launched against Israel one day.
Retired Lieutenant Colonel Sarit Zahavi studies the danger of Hezbollah through her research organization, ALMA.
Hezbollah is the proxy of Iran in the region. It's the most professional proxy of Iran in the region. It's the most equipped, dangerous proxy of Iran in the region. And we are here standing, looking in the eyes of Hezbollah. And the people that are raising their kids just a few feet from us, every morning looking in the eyes of Hezbollah.
I'm standing in the village of Hanita here on the Israeli-Lebanese border. Behind me, you can see children playing in this kindergarten, and over here, you can see how close the Lebanese border is. The sense of danger is real and ever present for those living here. In 2006, they lived through a 34-day war, which saw Hezbollah fire nearly 4,000 rockets into Israel. That barrage paralyzed northern Israel, chasing 1 million Israelis to the south, while the rest spent most of that month in bomb shelters. In 2021, the IDF believes Hezbollah is once again considering attacking Israel in what Zahavi describes as days of battle.
Days of battle would mean that the people that are living just here, a few feet from us, would not be able to get out of their home because it will be too dangerous. Meaning that their children will hear the sirens every 2 weeks and will have to run for shelter. This is a reality that is unbearable for the people of the north.
This is the only active border crossing between Israel and Lebanon. The UN base is just down the road within a no man's land, and I'm standing in an IDF base that keeps constant watch over Hezbollah.
Their threat is no joke, and we never underestimate our enemy, but we keep training, we keep practicing, we keep on gathering intelligence and always getting prepared and keeping readiness for the next conflict, for the next fight, making sure we have the upper hand.
Lieutenant Dalton describes Hezbollah's military strategy as one of blending in by creating a virtual civilian camouflage.
Hezbollah decided to take the step and make all of its establishments in southern Lebanon based on civilian clothing, civilian territory, civilian houses, really blend itself, camouflage itself into the population and keep operating in. So they know to hide, whether it's taking over civilian villages or households and really setting base up over there. But our intelligence is strong enough to understand their work and how they operate and to really pinpoint the location of their bases inside civilian territory.
Another hidden weapon in Hezbollah's arsenal is these underground tunnels along the border. CBN News got a rare look into this one that took years to build. Measuring at least 25 stories deep, it had already crossed into Israeli territory before the IDF uncovered and sealed it. Zahavi's organization identified another weapon by exposing Hezbollah assembling precision-guided missiles inside Beirut.
What most Americans, most Christians in the United States, North America, and around the world don't realize is that Lebanon is important to Iran because it is the forward operating base of their most aggressive offensive attack whenever they decide to attack Israel.
Middle East expert and author of the Beirut Protocol, Joel Rosenberg warns what might happen as the Biden administration considers re-entering the Iranian nuclear deal.
If Israel feared that the Biden administration was going to go down some road of negotiations that was short-sighted, ill-conceived, and dangerous, Israel might have to attack to neutralize those sites.
That could trigger Hezbollah.
Iran would unleash a barrage, the most devastating missile attack maybe in the history of mankind. They have upwards of, I hear, 150,000 missiles positioned right across that border, all through southern Lebanon. And they would light up the skies, and all the Israel defenses, all the missile defenses we have, would do some good, but it couldn't possibly stop a barrage of thousands and thousands and thousands of missiles coming in every day.
Israel's leaders realize those dangers. Some believe the IDF's goal would be to make its next response so massive that the next war with Hezbollah would be known as the last. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, on the Israeli-Lebanese border.
Coming up, actor Kirk Cameron bringing his 100-day American Campfire revival to an end with a message about faith. We'll have that story when we come back. Stay with us.
region's first ROTC graduate student.
I'm Ephraim Graham, and this is Studio 5. Cruise with me as I discover the good things happening in the world of music, sports, television, and movies.
The fact that Ryan Coogler was going to be directing the film, I knew that something special was going to happen.
We'll chat with artists at the forefront of entertainment and explore the connection between popular culture and faith.
I asked my pastor, I said, well, does that mean I'm supposed to be a preacher? He says, well, no, you already have a pulpit.
Wednesday night at 8:30 on the CBN News Channel.
How'd you like to get a redo on your health, on your body, on your arteries, so you could have the energy you had 20 years ago? The great news is you can. I'm Dr. Mike Roizen, chair of the Wellness Institute at the Cleveland Clinic. I've written 4 New York Times bestsellers. But even better than having to read all that, you can listen to this DVD and watch it. Protect your heart? Yes, you can. Here's how.
Go to CBN.com or call 1-800-700-7000 for your free copy of Protect Your Heart. Let the medical experts show you their new discoveries on how to avoid heart disease and even reverse it. Easy steps to uncover the hidden dangers in your medicine cabinet, reduce stress, and get a complete do-over for your health. Call 1-800-700-7000. That's 1-800-700-7000. Or go to CBN.com to claim your free copy of Protect Your Heart.
From Washington, D.C., uncompromising stories, interviews, and analysis from veteran journalists David Brody.
It's a 50-50 deadlock pretty much in the Senate.
Jenna Browder.
Meanwhile, doctors believe the newly discovered California variant is behind a massive wave of new cases.
Ben Kennedy.
He is sworn in as the 46th president.
Bringing you the political news that matters.
We're people who are committed to protecting the most weakest and the most vulnerable.
Watch Faith Nation, weeknights at 6.
And finally today, Kirk Cameron's American Campfire Revival is nearing its end. Millions have joined Cameron during his 100-day spiritual campaign, where he puts together worship and prayer with biblical discussions about truth. As his campaign nears its end, Cameron talked about having a unique faith in God through his word and prayer, which can transform our hearts, home, and the government. Cameron says we can go to the Bible and find out what the Bible says about faith, calling faith a gift given by God. You can find out more about Cameron and how he explains faith on CBNnews.com. Well, folks, that wraps up this edition of CBN News Watch. Remember, you can find more of our news programs on the CBN News Channel anytime or online with CBNnews.com. Also, tell us what you think about the stories you've seen by emailing newswatch@cbn.com, or you can reach out to us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We hope you'll join us again next time. From all of us here, goodbye and have a great day.